I want to come out and say that I do not support George Floyd and the media depiction of him as a martyr for Black America. I'm going to explain why, and I hope that some of you guys will understand where I'm coming from.
Let's talk about Candace Owens. So for those of you who don't know, Candace Owens is a self-racist, internalized misogynist, right-wing grifter, stupid-ass bitch with a wide-ass forehead who has basically been wrong about everything that she's ever said. If you might have heard of her from the likes of Kanye West or maybe Jesse Lee Peterson, two other coon-ass niggas who wear the MAGA hats and all that bullshit. But and quite frankly, chances are, if you're watching this video, it's more likely that you've heard of Kevin Owens than Candace Owens than ever hearing of me. But I don't know why people even believe this person. Nothing she ever says is correct. She came out recently with this that legendary take. I do not believe in George Floyd. I think I wanted to react to all the things that she said and give my take on it, if you will. So, yeah, let's get into that.
Hello, Facebook family. I have decided to do this video. It has been weighing very heavily on my heart and on my mind as well. And it was something that I wanted to say early on, but there were so many emotions and so much pressure for me to go with the popular opinion about who George Floyd was. And sometimes it can be difficult when there are just so many external pressures to say what you believe. And this was an instance where I felt like my silence would have been better in the beginning, but the more that I think about it, I realize that we are being sold a lot of lies, and at the detriment to the Black community, at the detriment to the white community, and at the detriment to America as a whole. So,
no, you had it right, Candace. Your silence would have been a lot better. Quite frankly, no one, again, should ever hear you ever fucking speak. I'm sure you saw the little tag at the bottom. I do not, confession, I do not support George Floyd, and I do not see him to be a martyr. No one is taking the position that they quote unquote support George Floyd. I certainly haven't heard anyone say anything about his character except his family. So I'm sure you can imagine where this video is going to go. It's going to be a classic "he was no angel" load of horse shit. You sniffed out 1 mile away. But let's continue.
I have spent a considerable amount of time reading a lot of Black authors that I think are some of the most brilliant Black Americans breathing. Walter Williams, Shelby Steele, Thomas Sowell, and...
I never heard of those people. Also, the definition of a martyr is not necessarily like, you know, the media version, the one you might have seen in like Warhammer 40K or some shit. I don't know where you're getting your definition from, Candace. A martyr is someone whose death triggers a broader cause. That person does not necessarily have to have intentionally sacrificed themselves, Candace. You know, they could have just been murdered, and people could have just felt bad about it. Like with George Floyd, for example. This bitch is dumb. She's a stupid person. Let's continue.
I recently came across something that was an idea that was planted into my head by Shelby Steele, and it has been something that I cannot forget. It is something that will stick with me for the rest of my life, and it is something that I hope for the Black Americans that are watching will stick with you for the rest of your life. Shelby Steele said that the Black community is unique from other communities. Our culture is unique from other communities because we are the only community that caters to the bottom denominator of our society. Now, let me explain what that means. It means to say that not every Black American is a criminal, not every Black American is committing crimes, but we are unique in that we are the only people that fight and scream and demand support and justice for the people in our community that are up to no good.
I don't know if you noticed, but Candace was accidentally honest for a second there. She said that the idea that she's talking about was planted in her head by someone else. That's pretty much everything that she says is an idea that was planted in her head by someone else. But to address the substance of what she said, where the fuck are you getting that idea from, Candace or Shelby Steele, whoever you are, that only black people are the ones who cater to the bottom denominator of society? If we take that at face value, what you're essentially saying is black people don't just disregard their criminals and say, I don't give a fuck what happens to them. They're a bad person. They committed a crime. Who cares what happens to them? And on that front, there is no community that is like that. Almost every community, almost every person would want at least someone that they identify with to be treated fairly under the law. That goes for everybody. It's not just black people. It's everybody. I mean, hell, you want a fucking example? Think about how Donald Trump has gotten away with committing high treason. The man was impeached, and his cohorts, the white-ass Republicans that voted for him not to be impeached and also voted for him, they supported his criminal actions. They didn't even want him to be treated fairly under the law. They just wanted him to get away scot-free. So clearly, I mean, it happens with white people, but broadly speaking, that happens with almost anybody. How can you drop that as an issue, as it were, with the black community? It don't make no fucking sense, man. And it's a silly thing to even come out your mouth with and say. But that is what Candace has made a career off of. Hopefully I won't be anything like her.
You would be hard-pressed to find, a Jewish person who has spent 5 stints in prison, who commits a crime and dies while committing a crime, and that the Jewish people champion and demand justice for.
It depends how that Jewish person dies, Candace. Depends on the crime, too. I can imagine if anybody of any color were to be going on a murderous rampage and they were to shoot up a church, for example, I'm sure most people would be fine if that person happened to be killed in the act of committing that crime. Interestingly enough, the likes of Dylan Roof survives those encounters, but I'm not getting into that right now. But if that same person, regardless of their history, regardless of their color, were to be strangled to death slowly and mercilessly in the act of committing a crime such as, say, selling loose cigarettes, anybody reasonable would look at that and say that is an injustice. I don't care what his past is. I don't care what he's done. He did not deserve to be fucking extrajudicially executed by the police, whose job is to detain, not execute.
You will be hard-pressed to find this in white America. You'll be hard-pressed to find this even in Latino America. If there is a person that is spent multiple times in prison, you are not going to see a bunch of Latinos coming out demanding justice for this person, even if, and I want to be very clear, what I'm saying is not any defense for Derek Chauvin. I hope Derek Chauvin gets the justice that he deserves to be, implemented upon him, and that the family of George Floyd deserves justice for the way that he died. But I also am not going to accept the narrative that this is the best the Black community has to offer. For whatever reason, it has become fashionable over the last 5 or 6 years for us to turn criminals into heroes overnight. And it is something that I find to be despicable, and it is something that I refuse to stand by any longer, and I am not going to play a part in it, no matter how much pressure comes from Black liberals and Black conservatives as some token of people wanting you to believe that this is the only way you can be Black, is you have to say this was wrong and that this, this person was amazing. I won't do that. George Floyd was not an amazing person, and as soon as this video hit the internet, I did just basic searches. Everyone jumped on it and was looking at the police officer, and everyone agrees that the police officer was wrong, and the police officer has been arrested. So that is not the reason I'm not discussing that, is because that is not something that has been misconstrued in the media. He has been turned into the devil that he is, and there is no reason for us to harp on that any longer, because white Americans are not uplifting Derek Chauvin as a victim or pretending that he's an amazing human being.
So once again, no, he is not. George Floyd is not being uplifted as some kind of saint. He was human as far as anyone's concerned, but the way he was murdered was absolutely brutal. And so again, it doesn't matter what sort of human being he was, that murder was unjustifiable. As for Derek Chauvin, for one, you're making it a white-black thing, and it's not necessarily a white-black thing. It's a police brutality versus, that's where the blackness comes in. The police brutally murdered a Black person. Again, there's plenty of white people and Black people that condemn that behavior. But also, plenty of the people on your side, the conservatives, are venerating Derek Chauvin as a hero. That is happening, Candace. And those are the people that broadly agree with you that are saying that. And you are empowering them to say that. That's your job in all of this, is to make their side seem stronger. Which again, just speaks to how much of a piece of shit you are. But let's move on. You still have more pieces of shit things to say.
But George Floyd is being uplifted as an amazing human being. For those of you who have not yet seen the clips and did not pursue or wait for more clips to come out, first and foremost, George Floyd at the time of his arrest was high on fentanyl, and he was high on methamphetamine. This came back in both of his autopsy reports. If you pursue the 911 transcript, you can see the person describing somebody who is out of their mind high, and which is what made the person fearful, because he tried to use a bill that I guess was a fake bill to purchase something, and then he was outside acting weird, and they, in their police call, said that this person was obviously distorted and on drugs.
I think Candace Owens tried to convince white America, don't worry about it, he's a criminal anyway. I don't give a fuck what this nigga did. I don't care what this nigga did. I don't care if he personally kicked Candace Owens in her stinky pussy. I don't know if it stinks, but I imagine it does. And if I ever find out, I'll let you know for sure. I'll tell like Azealia Banks, I'll tell.
Motherfucker could have been tweaking harder than anybody I've ever seen before. Anybody you've ever seen before, Candace. He could have been losing his fucking mind on drugs. What did you say? It was fentanyl and meth? Both? That could have fucked him up badly. But, hell, I say, it could have fucked him up badly, and he could have been violent just before the video started. There's no evidence that that happened, but it could have been. And the bill could have been a counterfeit. Again, that's not conclusive. They don't know that the bill was counterfeit. They just think that it might have been counterfeit. But all of those things could have been happening. And it still would be an unjustifiable murder, because on that video, the motherfucker had his knee buried in George Floyd's neck for 9 minutes. Like, on the 4th minute, it's over. And by that, I actually mean he was dead, so fuck it. On the 2nd minute, he's clearly not resisting. He clearly can't resist anymore. What sort of argument is this? He was on drugs and he was acting weird. So that justifies his murder? She's going to say, no, I didn't say it justifies his murder. But there's no reason to bring it up, Candace, if you're not trying to justify his murder. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no reason to bring up any of this. No reason whatsoever. And again, unless your argument is against the non-people who are saying he was a perfect model citizen who never did drugs, which, by the way, doesn't really have much to do with your character anyway. You could be a model, perfect human being who does drugs. Doing drugs says nothing about your character. It just means, you know, you do drugs sometimes, but you can still be like a fucking saint. This is the right wing, people. This is how they argue, right here. Ridiculous. Let's move on.
When he is put into handcuffs and is put against the wall, a baggie of what looks to be like cocaine or it's white. It's a white baggie that he drops onto the floor that you can see in an image. If you look up the clip, the media is refusing to circulate it. You can find it on Twitter. If you use DuckDuckGo and look up George Floyd baggie, you can watch the clip yourself with your own eyes. He had drugs on him at the time of his arrest.
Irrelevant, Candace. Irrelevant. He could have been carrying a truckload of drugs with him. That is irrelevant to what happened. Do you get that? I'll just assume you're right. As a matter of fact, like I said, I'll go one step further. I'll outright lie and say, motherfucker had a truckload of drugs with him. Somehow carrying a truckload's worth of drugs with him when the cops was arresting him. That does not justify his murder, Candace. It doesn't justify his murder. Fucking hell.
Now, barring all of that, nobody thinks that he should have died during this arrest, but what I find despicable to be is that everyone is pretending that this man lived a heroic lifestyle when he didn't, and I want to talk about what his lifestyle was leading up to this moment and why I refuse to accept the narrative that this person is a martyr or should be lifted up in the Black community and that we should be buying t-shirts with his name on it.
Here we go. For at least the next 2, 3, maybe 5, maybe even 10 minutes, you're going to hear a long-form version of the phrase, he was no angel. They love doing this. When a Black person is murdered, they just want to tell you how bad a person he was. Again, like I said, he could have been scum of the earth. Could have been the worst person in the world. I don't think it's likely he's the worst person in the world. I don't think he had enough influence to be able to do that, but he could have been. And this murder would still be unjustified. And she keeps trying to cover her tracks by saying, oh, I'm not saying this murder is justified. I'm not saying it was okay what happened to him. But then she goes on to tell you why it's okay that it happened to him. You see what that's doing? Like, that'd be like me saying, no, I'm not saying Candace Owens is a liar and a grifter, but everything she says is untrue, and she gets dark money from right-wing interest groups. But I'm not saying she's a liar and a grifter, though. By the way, I just want to make it clear, I am saying she's a liar and a grifter because that's what she fucking is.
Okay, so here we have, first and foremost, let's start from the bottom of his record.
Does she have, like, paper printouts? Does she just have a dossier of this guy's record? Jesus Christ, woman, this is ridiculous. I almost don't want to play this video in full. I'm reacting to it as I make these clips. I know they're edited, so it could be, but I'm reacting to it as I watch it. I'm gonna watch the next couple of minutes, and if it really is just her running through the list of bad things that he's done before today, I'm not gonna upload it. Just take my word that all she did was run through the list, and of course you could look at the video yourself to verify what I'm saying is true. But if that's all she's doing is running down the list of bad things he's done, like, come on, man. If somebody could print out a record of all of our past mistakes, they could paint us out to be a pretty bad person too. It would not justify if any of us were murdered in the way George Floyd was. So, I guess we'll find out what's the next clip that I show.
In 2005, a woman who was pregnant received a knock at the door, and she went to the door, and the person pretended to be someone that worked for the water department. So she opened her door and quickly realized that the person at her door did not work for the water department and attempted to slam it. At the moment that she was attempting to slam it, a Ford pulled up and another 5 men jumped out of the car, and one of which was George Floyd, came up to the door, and they forced their way inside to her home. inside of her home. Mind you, this woman is pregnant. At that point, George Floyd took out a gun and pressed it to her stomach. She was screaming, begging for her life, and he put her inside of her living room and instructed one of his criminal friends that was with him to watch her and to make sure she didn't leave the living room. So he was playing guard while they ransacked her home looking for drugs and money. They did not find drugs. They ended up taking, I believe, her wallet and her cell phone. Fortunately for her, her neighbor observed what was going on and caught the license plate of the people as they pulled off and called 911. And when 911 was able to, they were able to track down the car of which George Floyd was the driver, and they arrested him. And 2 years later, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for that instance.
So I decided to list that one because it was one of the things on her list. But as she pointed out, and as I would agree with, it is the worst thing on that list. It is the most egregious offense, I'd say, that is on George Floyd's record, if it were. Now, if what she's saying is true, it is clear that that is indeed a very bad thing to do. Burglarizing a pregnant woman's home. No question. Actually, that would be armed robbery. No question. Armed burglary. No question. I would say that is an utterly atrocious thing to do, and anybody who would do that would be at that time an utterly terrible human being. Now, as she starts alluding to, maybe he got his life together, maybe he would be a reformed criminal. And I think we should give everybody a chance to reform, quite frankly. I imagine that woman he robbed, if he did do that, I'm going to get to why I stress that so much in a second, I'm sure she wouldn't care. She would just want justice for herself. And that's fair enough. If you take the stance that George Floyd was a bad person off that, if it were true, be my guest. I might even agree with you. But it doesn't justify his murder, for one. And for two, considering who's saying it, I'm not sure. I know for damn sure I don't believe her off rip. I'll do my own research. I'll look into it and see if it's even true. Who knows if I'll actually do the research. Maybe I'll put my findings in this video. Maybe I might not. I'm not going to do it right now in this moment. But if I happen to research this later, as I'm editing this, then I will edit in my findings after this.
Hey, how's it going? Future Demetrius here. I just did a little bit of fact checking. Turns out Candace was right on this one. Her assessment of George Floyd's record was correct. Backed up by a couple of different sources. I listed one in the description below. You can check it out for yourself. I just add that the source that I got it from talks about how later in life, despite his criminal record, he tried to reform by seeking Jesus. And to me, I don't know, that sounds an awful lot like something a conservative should sympathize with. Someone coming to Jesus after their past mistakes. But yeah, she didn't say anything about that. She I guess she missed that part. But yeah, this is true. And of course, obviously, the point still stands. It doesn't actually make a difference in terms of how George Floyd died. Certainly doesn't make a difference in terms of how the protesters and the events that happened since his death should have played out. They all largely are the same. He's not being venerated as some kind of hero. It's just that his death was clearly unjust, and despite his record, it was still clearly unjust. So yeah, back to the video and more of my handsome mug talking about this shit. Have a good one.
Now, you can say the media is portraying it like he was just getting his life together after, being released in 2014 following that incident. He was just getting his life together and moved and was going to start afresh. I'd like to believe all of those things, and there's a gap, and he never got in trouble for 5 years until this incident when the police were called on him again. But you are defying common sense to believe that this person suddenly became an exemplary character but happened to be high on fentanyl and methamphetamine and trying to use a fake bill to purchase something. And so, in my opinion, George Floyd was a criminal. He was a criminal. And just because he was a criminal doesn't mean he deserved to die at the knee of a police officer.
You realize, Candace, that you kind of can't middle ground this one, right? You either, because you're reframing the argument. I think that's what you're trying to do anyway. It's transparent and easy to sniff out the bullshit on this one. But you're trying to reframe it as, obviously, the way George Floyd died was bad, but that's not the important part. The problem is black people venerating him as a hero. But you realize that nobody's doing that. I'm sure you know that nobody's doing that. He's not being venerated as a hero. The discussion is about police brutality. That's what it's about, is police brutality. And so the two sides to this issue is, do you support police brutality or are you against it? There's kind of no way to sort of be on the middle of ground against that one. You could broadly support the policing system but still say that level of brutality is unacceptable and something needs to be done about that. I still would disagree with you. I'd say that the entire policing system is corrupt and needs major reform or abolishment, whatever that may mean. But certainly you can't say, I'm neither for police brutality or against it. Obviously, you can't make that argument. If you were to come out, either you're going to say something that's abhorrent, like I support police brutality, or you have to side with the black people. But I can see why you feel like that's a rock and a hard place, because fuck them niggas, right? Again, you're super fucking predictable, Candace, and just such a garbage person.
But it does mean that I am not going to play a part of the broken black culture that always wants to martyr criminals, who wants to pretend they were these upstanding human beings that just wanted to help society, that just wanted to reach out and uplift society. And he has a rap.
Yeah, she makes this point repeatedly. The whole the black community is venerating him as a hero thing. They're not, simply put. And if she makes it again, I think she's inclined to. I'm just going to skip past that part. Again, her video is easily available. It's got millions of views elsewhere. You want to see it for yourself to make sure that I'm not glossing over an important point, feel free, go right ahead. But yeah, she makes this point again. I'm just going to skip past it and not show it. So, yeah.
Sheet that is long, that is dangerous. He was an example of a violent criminal his entire life. Okay, up until the very last moment. Now, again, I want to be clear. This is not a defense for Derek Chauvin. No one that I have spoken to, no one in the news is defending Derek Chauvin. He is getting what he has coming to him. Okay, great. But why are we pretending that this criminal should be upheld as a citizen, as a martyr in Black America? A martyr for a fake narrative, by the way. Police brutality, racially motivated police brutality is a myth.
All right, so she just suddenly threw a bunch of wild, crazy shit at us. Okay, so first off, wow, racially motivated police brutality is a myth, Candace. That's special. Blatantly wrong, blatantly false and untrue. the pattern of police brutality against black people is clearly demonstrated throughout all of history. Hell, the modern policing system was brought about out of slave patrols. Racism is at its very foundation, Candace. It came about because of slave patrols. And it grew into, the Pinkertons, the anti-union people and all that. And it evolved. It was built upon that to become the institution that it is today. For you to argue that there is no racial bias, I mean, shit, we've had investigations, like government investigations that have found racial biases in police precincts. Government investigations, the government doesn't even want to admit this kind of thing, Candace, but they found it. They found clear evidence of racial biases. As a New Yorker, I can tell you the stop and frisk policy was brazenly unconstitutional. That's why it had to be stopped. And it was clearly racially motivated. To say that there's no racial bias among police, because again, I think the police are brutal. Generally speaking, they're overly militarized and they're brutal across the board to a degree. They have this tendency to allow white mass murderers to come home peacefully, whereas innocent black civilians or black people committing minor infractions, they manage to kill them. So that happens often enough. But they are overly brutal as a whole. But if there's a racial bias, that would mean that their brutality affects black people to a higher degree because there is an inherent racial bias to an already brutal organization. That's like, what you're saying is fucking silly, Candace. And Jesus Christ, I wonder sometimes. I wonder if you really believe what you're saying, because it's apparent. It's so obvious. It's so fucking obvious, and yet here you are. Jesus Christ, woman. Let's move on.
Okay, so let's get into that. Not only are we using this death, right, and allowing it to cause these riots and protests, pretending this was some upstanding citizen in the black community who was tackled down and killed for no reason, right? Not only are we allowing it to inspire riots in which black people are dying, in which actual upstanding black citizens are dying. Case in point, I'm sure you guys have all now seen David, the sheriff that just was shot and killed because he was trying to protect a pawn shop. Please look him up if you haven't seen it. I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is David, who was shot and killed for trying to protect a pawn shop from looters. An upstanding citizen, an actual head of a police. He was the head of a police his entire life, 77 years old, did everything right, right?
And about the riots and black people being killed, he threw that at us too. The vast majority of the violence, based on the footage, the live footage of what we're seeing, the vast majority of the violence in these protests is being caused by police. And even those that are directly caused by protesters, there are agent provocateurs of various organizations. None of them are Antifa, because Antifa is not an organization. Those organizations might be the cops, white supremacist groups, and paramilitary organizations. On top of that, your story about the black police officer that was killed trying to protect the pawn shop, hell of a hill to die on, a fucking pawn shop, to be honest. I don't believe you. And again, this is another one of those things that I will fact check probably in post. If I do actually do some fact checking on this one and falsify this, if it happens to be false, I'll like I said, I might edit it in. By the way, an important notice is that just because I don't go back and edit this in, it does not mean that she's right. Okay. I will definitely look it up. Let me put it like that. I would definitely look it up. And if her stories are true, I will confirm them. If they're false, I might I might confirm their falseness, or I might not. But a lack of um, editing from me does not mean that she's telling the truth here. So don't get that misconstrued. It would honestly just be laziness on my part. But if you know, I'm questioning her credibility. So I have a responsibility to make sure that she is not lying, and or that she is lying. And if I'm going to do that, I should do the research. So yeah, if she's telling the truth, I'll come back and I'll say, hey, she happened to be right on this one, and I'll explain the situation from a different perspective than hers.
So what's up? Yeah, future Demetrius here again. Yeah, I just looked it up, and Candace was right on this one. 74-year-old man in St. Louis by the name of David Dorn. He was a veteran of the St. Louis Police Department. He was murdered trying to protect his friend's pawn shop by one Stephen Cannon, or Stefan Cannon. I didn't hear his name pronounced vocally. He was trying to loot the pawn shop. I believe David Dorn, he was trying to protect it, so I presume he got in the way, and Cannon shot him. Um, so, on this subject, allow me to provide my very controversial take. Murder is bad, in my opinion, and I don't think anyone should murder anyone. That said, when you've been basically putting your knee on people's neck for hundreds of years, it's no telling what people are going to do. Sometimes horrible things happen. So I'll pray for Mr. Dorn's family, and I hope Stephen Cannon is brought to justice. But that's blood on the hands of this policing system and people who support it, man. Like Stephen Cannon as an individual, yeah, he's got to go to jail, and I hope he spend the rest of his life in there. But broadly speaking, the problem is the policing system. If we had a fair policing system, this shit wouldn't have happened. Specifically, the way it happened, it definitely wouldn't have happened. People wouldn't be flipping out over George Floyd's death because George Floyd wouldn't have died. Not that way. So, yeah, that's really what the conversation is about, man. Um, like I said, I in general, I hope we see justice. I mean that broadly speaking. I hope we see justice everywhere, all over. Um, for David Dorn, for Stephen Cannon, and for this entire police system.
So we now have to kill upstanding black citizens because a non-upstanding black citizen, a career black criminal, died. Now, did he deserve to die in that manner? No. I can't say it enough. No, he didn't deserve to die in that manner. But I will be damned if the rest of us upstanding black citizens have to suffer.
Which upstanding black citizens are you referring to, Candace? Because you use the word us. And if the category is upstanding black citizens, you ain't in it. Okay, you're a racist. You're a grifter. You're a liar, a shyster, and none of that shit makes you upstanding. I say I'm upstanding. I say, Cornell West, brother Cornell West, he's upstanding. But you ain't in that category, Candace. So I don't appreciate you using the word us there. I think you should remove yourself from our community, like you've done historically. It's, so you can sit there in your nice little house and scold us on your bullshit statistics, which of course we'll get to.
because of this incident that rarely ever happens in America. So here are some numbers.
All right, so Auntie Ruckus here is going to go ahead and throw out some bullshit statistics. That's what her ilk tends to do. I'll tell you right now, we've constantly, the statistics are constantly being manipulated. I can tell you up front, there are drastically more white people in America than there are black people. Obviously, black people make up 13% of the population. If we use, and black men in particular make up about 6%. There's more black women than black men. Obviously, it's largely black men that get killed by the police, but there are some black women that get killed by the police too. I haven't forgotten about the likes of Breonna Taylor. So we're talking 6% of the population versus like 60% in terms of white people. And again, white men would make up approximately 25%. It's largely men of any race that commits any crime, especially violent crimes. So statistically, it should be way more. If the police are brutal across the board, if the police have no racial motivations whatsoever, there should be way more white people being killed than black people by cops. Granted, when I say should, I mean nobody should be being killed. I mean, if we're talking about these statistics, that police brutality, they're just brutal across the board. They're not just particularly brutal to black people. There should be drastically more white people being killed by cops than black people. If you look at the statistics, it doesn't play out. There are more, but it's not by like orders of magnitude like it probably should be. Again, 6% of the population versus at least 25% of the population of all of America. There's way more people. These statistics don't play out. But once she gets done throwing out her numbers, again, this might be another thing where I fact check her. Let's see if I can check her data on this one. I'm not looking at her original video here. So I actually don't know which data she cites, but I'll see if I can find some sources and fact check this one. Confident it's a load of horse shit. In this case, I'll have my sources listed below.
For you people that are still believing that police brutality is a real, racially motivated police brutality is a real thing. First and foremost, okay, you have a 25% higher chance as a violent white criminal of dying at the hands of a police officer than you do as a black criminal. Last year, a total of 9 unarmed black men were killed by police officers and 19 white men were killed by police officers.
Future bad guy here again. So I think I ignored this point when I was initially reacting to it, probably because my brain detected how on its face retarded it was, and I failed to address it for the sake of my sanity. But this is an outright lie, blatantly false. According to her, 9 black people versus 19 white people, unarmed black and white people were killed by police in 2019, I'm assuming. She said last year, so 2019. This is untrue. I just looked at some data from the Washington Post, which gets their data from official police reportings. And apparently, at least 55 unarmed people were killed by the police. Hold on, it's a cool little gadget. I'll have the link to what I'm looking at in the description below. And you'll be able to mess around with it yourself. But I'm just I'm manipulating these numbers and when I say manipulating, I don't mean altering statistics. Again, you could look at it for yourself. Um, I'm just looking around at how you can like break things down based on race, age, state, gender, whether or not the person was suffering from mental illness. There was a body camera on, um, and if the person was fleeing the scene, and of course if they had a weapon, and if they had a weapon, what kind of weapon it was. So Candace's argument is A, false, blatantly, on its face, incorrect. Um, in 2019, there were 55 people shot and killed by police who were unarmed. Um, of those 55, 25 were white, 14 were black. So her numbers are wrong even on its face, but she's using the term unarmed, which, you know, legally is, um, it means they had nothing in their hands at all, right? I think an honest argument or an honest discussion would say, well, anything short of a gun, a police officer should really be able to handle without killing the person, because they are trained specifically for this. So, I took a look at the numbers. As it turns out, um, if the weapon is anything short of a gun, yeah, just tallying up some numbers there. So, in 2019, if the person was holding anything short of a gun, such as a knife, or they were in a vehicle of some kind, or it was a toy weapon, or some other weapon, or they were totally unarmed, 577 deaths from police officers. 577 people killed by police officers. Now, the racial breakdown, breaking that down is more difficult, but I sincerely doubt, I think we can just conclude that it wasn't 28 people like in that mix. It was a split of 9 black people and 19 white people, and the other 550, the other 559 people were all non-black and non-white. I think that is clearly wrong. Clearly, a lot more black people and white people were killed by police in 2019. So I don't know where the fuck her numbers come from. But yeah, again, I have a link in the description below. Feel free to mess around with the little widget thing yourself. It's pretty cool. Gives you a decent breakdown of, again, uh, police killings in different categories. Um, so to help, helps visualize it for you. Again, have a look at it for yourself.
For those of you that aren't good at mathematics, right, you might be thinking, oh, but Candace, white people represent 60% of the population and black people represent just 13% of the population. It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent. It matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent. And unfortunately, black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community. Let me tell you, 6% of the population, right, black men, 6% of the population account for 44% of all murders in this country, according to 2018 statistics.
Okay, so she just tried to do some jujitsu with her numbers. So the number that she's referring to refers to convictions, as in those who actually went to jail for what they did. Now, we first must understand, just because more black people are being convicted for their crimes does not mean that they are necessarily committing them at a higher rate. It's simply not true across the board. If we go by, if everything were even, if accused criminals were serving time fairly, the percentages would be the same across the board, and there would be a lot more white people in jail than black people. But again, black people come from historically oppressed communities. They lack resources. They can't get a good lawyer to get them off. And so they end up being convicted and thrown into jail more often. Her numbers here are bullshit. I think it goes without saying, but I guess I might go ahead and find a source on this one. But numbers are a load of horseshit. So what I'm trying to say in all of that is that by race, races commit crimes like at the same percentage. It's around 14%. That goes for everybody. That goes for black people, white people, Hispanic people, what have you. Asian people, all the same percentage. Your race will have no bearing on how likely you are to commit crimes. You know, her bullshit data, the whole point of it is to suggest that black people are more prone to commit crimes. It's not true. Her data is based on conviction rates, which is heavily lopsided against black people. Black people are far more likely to be convicted for crimes than they are to commit them. Or rather, they're far more likely to be convicted for crimes than other races. Hence why there's such an overrepresentation by black people in the prison system. If things were more fair, broadly across the board in the justice system, it'd be like 14% of everybody from every race would be in jail. Again, if we had to go by our current system, which I'm not a fan of regardless, but if the system were fair, if the system, as bad as it is, were fair, 14% of people from every race would be in jail. But it's not true. You know, 44, I've seen as high as 60% of prisoners are black men, which is patently absurd considering the numbers. Like, you hear a lot of, like, the 1350 is generally what you hear from everyone. The right wing use it as a way to, and that 1350 means 13% of the population versus 50% of the prison population. Conservatives like to use it as essentially a dog whistle to say, hey, black men are inherently violent. Whereas, you know, from the left, it is the system is racially biased. The left is objectively correct, and the right is objectively wrong, as they always are. But Candace is going to keep bullshitting these numbers.
That is what you call a gap. And yet white people who represent 60% of the population, we represent 13, black men are 6%, only represent 50% of all the murders, right? That makes no sense. That makes no sense. A 6-point variation in a community where we are extreme minorities. We commit 50% of all violent offenses, evenly split, and we're only 13% of the population, okay? So we have a lot more encounters with police officers. And don't say the police officers are coming around because we're black. I'm talking about violent criminals. I'm talking about murder, 44% of murders, okay? You want to talk about real statistics? The police officers have way more to be fearful of in the black community than the other way around, okay? We commit, on average, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black person than the other way around.
That's a good one. That way she just fucked with statistics there. There's a much bigger YouTuber than me, goes by the name Vosh. I saw a video from him. He debunked this shit thoroughly. He looked at the sources that she used and the statistics behind it. If you manipulate statistics in the way she did, you could come up with saying that, like, white people are 126% more likely to kill cops than the other way around. And obviously, in an intellectually honest capacity, that is not true. Police obviously kill civilians far more often than civilians kill police. Again, she's bullshitting the statistics here. And I would also just like to mention that she's reframing the discussion. Look how far away from fucking George Floyd that we've gotten right now. We're talking about black people in general and the crimes they commit. Even if all this shit were true, it's irrelevant. George Floyd was murdered. He was tortured to death. And here we are talking about how criminal the black people are. Do you see this? This is the right-wing grift. This is it right here. She's just talking about how bad all of her fellow black people are. And Candace, don't get it fucking twisted. You ain't one of us. All right? Miss me with that bullshit, Candace.
Okay, so this entire narrative is complete smoke and mirrors. It's all made up. It's just election fodder. It's white versus black because it's an election year, not because black Americans are suffering at the hands of police officers more than white Americans.
Pure insanity, by the way. Election fodder? Really? Who instigated George Floyd's murder? Like, it would have to have been planned from the jump, Candace. Someone would have had to say, hey, man, shit, it's an election year. We want our side, whoever you are accusing of instigating. I'm assuming you're saying it was the liberals who did it. So Joe Biden and his cabal of people who can make cops do whatever they want say, hey, let's get this one cop in this one city to murder this guy so that we can start talking about the Black Lives Matter people. So that they'll vote for me. and then followed it up by offering milquetoast bullshit non-solutions to the whole issue, like things that won't really help him get elected. I don't know, man. This doesn't seem like a good plan from them. Who do you think is doing this? This is ridiculous. This is absurd. No, this happened. It happened because it happened. It doesn't have anything to do with it being an election year. Although, fuck it, if I were running for president right now, if it were my election, cynically speaking, yeah, I would use it to my advantage. I would try. I would try to say, sir, I'd try to get black people on my side. I say, hey, the murder of George Floyd was wrong. It was heinous. It was disgusting. And it is clear, that with the rate at which these things happen, that there's a systemic issue. So as president, I will address this directly. I will revamp the policing system. And it will start with, I don't know, whatever set of policies you want to go with. I can get into that at a later time. But you'd have to have a policy platform. Just saying that by itself would be useless. I do have a set of policies that I would go for. Like I said, I'm just not going to get into them because you're the focus today, Candace. You're the center of attention, just like you always, go out of your way to be.
Do some police officers do the wrong thing? Yes. I don't think there's anybody in the world who has not encountered a police officer and thought this person is an absolute jerk who is power tripping, whether you are black or white. We know they exist. And we know they're always going to exist, by the way, because they're human beings. And sometimes human beings suck. In fact, if you want to attack a community for accidental slayings or brutality, did you know that doctors accidentally kill 250,000 people every year because of mistakes?
This is an absurd whataboutism. Doctors kill patients accidentally because of mistakes every year. So, addressing this first, before we get to that insanity about the human element of police. First with this. A doctor, when someone is killed by a doctor, there's two things it could be. Malpractice or a genuine effort to save a life that fails. Now, if it is an effort to save a life that happens to fail, the doctor did everything they could do and the patient still dies, that's not the same as a cop showing up and shooting somebody, obviously. That is, surgery is hard. Saving a life is hard. It's a difficult thing to do. It doesn't have a guaranteed success rate. So sometimes you're going to give it your best shot as a doctor. You're going to try and save a life, and you're going to fail. Unfortunately, that's how it goes with these things. Now, if it's medical malpractice, you do that shit even once, one time, one fuck up, and you're done. You're out. You're done. You can't practice medicine anymore. You have to find another profession if your ass don't go to jail. So to draw this equivalency is frankly absurd, Candace. I don't even know why the fuck you would say that. What? We're saying doctors are bad people right now? Fucking ridiculous. And as far as you saying there's a human element to policing, here's the thing, Candace, and I don't know if you've ever thought about this. Matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever thought before. But I would say that police should be held to a higher standard than normal citizens. The reason why is because police have the state authority and the state mandate to serve the citizens and uphold the law. That means they need to have a better understanding of the law than the normal citizen, and they need to be able to navigate the law better than the normal citizen. Because quite frankly, we, the citizens, actually have a mandate to know every law that's in the penal code, every law and every punishment that's in the penal code, or we're held responsible. Even saying that we don't know, saying that we didn't know something illegal is actually not, something is illegal, is actually not a defense in the court of law. So we actually have to know every single, like our standard is we have to know every single thing that is illegal and never do anything illegal. But cops are not held to that standard. And cops will do brazenly illegal things like murder without being held accountable for them. That's just not fair. That's not fair as it is. But because cops are required to be the ones to uphold the law, I'd say they need to be held to a higher standard. They don't get the option of being only human. Because if that were the case, the same thing that you and the likes of Tucker Carlson are fear-mongering about, just, policing would just be people with guns saying what is right and what is wrong. That's essentially what police are right now, just people with guns deciding what is right and what is wrong. Who don't even really know the word of the law and sometimes kill with impunity for no good reason. That's essentially what the police are now. We might as well not have them if that's the standard that they were going to go by. That they don't necessarily have to know, or they don't necessarily have to be held to a high standard of right and wrong. If that's the case, I say get rid of them. If that's how we're going to, if that's the standard that we're going to have. Because quite frankly, I could shoot somebody for no good reason. If I wasn't going to get in trouble for it especially, I could. I could torture somebody to death. I probably wouldn't under any circumstance, but I'm capable of it. I'm a big guy, not sure if you could tell. I could do what Derek Chauvin did. They need to be held to a higher standard of accountability, not just the normal standard. Frankly, if a police officer were to catch me kneeling on somebody's neck, they'll arrest me immediately. We wouldn't have gone any amount of time. And that's the big reason why the protests and riots broke out. Is because it took so long for them to even do anything on the subject, for them to even make any moves. Now, at this point in time, this is in the future. I think you posted this video on the 3rd or 4th. It is the 10th now. Derek Chauvin has been charged with second-degree murder, and the 3 officers have also been arrested. I don't know about their charges. I'm hearing that they were released on bail, which is silly. I don't know about their charges. And in that intervening time, again, not fair to you, not that you would care, but there have been some suggestions that do make sense. For example, Candace Jet Smith, who is actually one of the sportscasters on TNT, former basketball player, he suggested a law for policing the police, in which if a cop commits a crime, then any cop around him who will also be charged with that same crime at the same level. So it wouldn't be like murder and accessory. It would be murder, 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 murder in the case of Derek Chauvin. And talking about old people getting killed. How about that one old guy that got shoved down by those police in riot gear up in Boston, I believe it was, 75-year-old man, then had his ears bleed because his head cracked across the ground because the cop shoved him down. Horrifying sight. All of those cops would be charged with assault and battery because thank God the guy lived. Wouldn't be murder, it'd be assault and battery. That would force the cops to hold each other accountable. But of course, you don't care. You like the fact that the cops show up and start offing black people. That's all, the only function about them that you really care about. You can give a fuck if we transition into this police thing. You don't really care about that. That one was more for the reasonable people watching this video. Tell me what you think in the comments about that one. I'm just spitballing at this point.
Do you know that there's been doctors that have been arrested for being serial killers, that just were killing people because they wanted to? Do we protest and boycott doctors? Do we assume all doctors are horrible human beings because some doctors are? Or do we realize that society is not perfectible? People suck in every profession. It is no excuse to paint society with a broad brush. It is certainly no excuse to accept a Democrat narrative, okay, that black people are being disproportionately hunted down by police officers because of the color of their skin.
So this ain't no Democrat narrative, by the way, because the Democrats would broadly agree with you that policing is not a systemic issue. At least they did. I think they're cynically seeing that, you know, they want to show up some votes. And so they're going to make mock shows of solidarity. But come on, man, the policing system is still broadly fucked up. But we had 8 straight years of a black Democratic president. And the policing system was just as bad as him. The Black Lives Matter movement started while he was still in office. So it's not really a Democrat-Republican thing. It's it's a systemic issue. It's deeper than, it's baked into its very core. And that goes into what the bullshit you just said about the doctors. There is no systemic racism. Well, there is actually a degree of systemic racism in medical practices, but it's different. You can't get away with killing people as a doctor. You can make erroneous diagnoses. A lot of times, if someone is claiming to be hurt or something like that, and they happen to be a person of color, I've seen doctors turn them away because, you know, they're a person of color. And so they say, oh, well, they're just looking for drugs. That's different. That's different. That's a separate conversation. But the conversation that we're having now is about the systemic racism in the policing system. Doctors cannot do those things to the same degree. They're going to just off their patients. You do it once and you're done. Cops get to do it and keep their fucking jobs. It's a completely different thing, Candace. And I'm sure you actually understand. I was going to say, I don't think you understand that. I'm sure you actually understand it, but you're just parroting the right-wing talking points, and it's absolutely fucking disgusting.
You want to know the best way to avoid not being brutalized by a police officer is to limit the amount of encounters you need to have with them, especially when it comes to violent crimes. Okay? I am not going to stand for this continual bottom-feeding narrative of us martyring people that have had 5, 6, 7 stints in prison and then pretending they were upstanding heroes to our community.
Oh yeah, so she did the martyr thing again. Told you how I feel about that. As for limiting your encounters, the best way to avoid being brutalized by police is limiting your encounters with them. Well, that's classic victim blaming, isn't it? No. Listen, the problem is not that cops brutalize people. The problem is that you're visible to a cop who might brutalize you. So maybe don't. Same principle as, hey, you know, maybe if you didn't want to get raped, maybe you shouldn't have been wearing that outfit. Silly shit. I mean, these things are broadly on the same category in the right wing. And they're both wrong. Obviously, the fault of a rape is on the rapist. And if a rape happens, it's because a rapist decided to rape. A woman could have been naked. If no one decides to rape her, she wouldn't be raped. And if anybody is brutalized by police, it's because the police officer brutalized them. If police officers didn't brutalize people, no one would ever be brutalized by police. I know it sounds like a crazy off-the-wall concept, but I swear it's true, objectively. You can look it up. It's factual. This dumb bitch.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Excuse my language. It's absolute bullshit. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having to play pretend. I'm tired of sitting here and being called a coon or an Uncle Tom because I won't play this bottom-feeding game with you.
Your friends Kanye and Jesse Lee Peterson might not call you no coon or something like that. And guess what? They coon-ass niggas too. Sorry, Candace. It's just what you are. I'd say embrace it. Made you a lot of money, right? I'm sure it's worth it.
If you want to hang up posters of criminals on your wall and talk about them as your martyrs, do it. Do it. You can do it. Kobe Bryant was my idol, okay? I'll keep a photo of Kobe Bryant.
Quality on this video is terrible. Where's all that money going, Candace? Where's it all going? Get yourself a decent fucking camera. What is this? I'm using my iPhone, Candace. I'm using my goddamn iPhone and I can hit it just at 1080p, 60 frames per second. Just get a webcam. God, look, nobody idolized George Floyd. I find it interesting that you idolize Kobe Bryant, who, I mean, you're talking about criminals. Kobe Bryant is an accused rapist. Clearly, you're not applying your standards across the board. Kobe was a great basketball player, though. I don't know, maybe you're into basketball or something. I don't know. I don't even... This video is just devolving into just right-wing madness. But I guess I'll subject myself to the rest of it.
You can keep one of George Floyd and pretend he was an upstanding human being that just once or twice put a gun across a pregnant woman's belly. Could you imagine that woman right now? That black woman, by the way, right? Watching everybody pretend this person was an upstanding human being who just at the age of 42 and 5 prison stints was going to get his life together. I mean, it's embarrassing. We are embarrassing in that regard, right? This is why we have a cycle and a toxic culture.
Oh, you're right. You are embarrassing. And you do have a cycle of a toxic culture. Obviously, we're talking about different things. You're talking about black people in this imaginary, fictional narrative of how we're venerating George Floyd. Really, we're just saying, hey, he didn't deserve to get fucking murdered horrifyingly, and we have a history of extrajudicial murders of black people. Obviously, you are embarrassing because you're this stupid, Candace. I'm saying this like you're ever gonna see it. I know you're not, but it is pretty embarrassing. I mean, who am I? I'm just some guy on his couch. You're a multimillionaire, and I am in every way, better than you, and I got nothing going for me. If I were you, I feel pointless, man. I feel like I ain't shit. Like I'm garbage. If I were you, I at least got some pride to fall back on. You ain't got nothing.
Because nobody wants to tell the truth in Black America. It's so easy to be a victim. It's so easy to ask white people to bow down and apologize and do all these things for us. It's crap. It's crap. It's a lie. It's a farce. Our biggest problem is us, okay? It's why we don't talk about it when black on black crime happens. It's why we don't talk about it when 40 black people are killed in one weekend during Memorial Weekend in Chicago. We don't want to talk about any of that stuff. We don't want to talk about Baltimore. We don't want to talk about New Jersey. We don't want to talk about any of these places where black people are being slaughtered by other black.
And there it is. She brought up black on black crime. It is so contrite and boring at this point that it practically puts you to sleep. Okay, if I have to say, black on black crime as it's presented is a myth. Do black people largely commit crimes against other black people? Yes, but it has nothing to do with our blackness. It's the fact that black communities typically have black people in them. And nobody leaves their communities to go commit crimes. Stupid. Which, by the way, is a Republican position that people do leave their communities to commit crimes in other communities, but also that there's so much black on black crime. It don't make no sense. It don't make no sense together. But no, the fact of the matter is, there is no more black on black crime than there is white on white crime than there is Hispanic on Hispanic crime. Like, people commit crimes in their own communities. That's just what they do. That's how crime works. People don't go out of their communities to make crimes in other communities. It's just a function of criminality. But of course, that's not the point. It's not an honest discussion, right? All she's trying to do is score black people. It's the same tired bullshit. And you can present however many facts you want to these people, and they'll never change. I'll get to Candace Owens specifically on why she won't change towards the end of this video. But no, it doesn't matter what you tell her. She ain't gonna change that position, no matter how factual you're being.
Because that would mean that we had to be personally accountable, right? That would mean personal responsibility. We don't do personal responsibility in our community. We don't do it. We blame white people, right? We only point a camera to white people when they do something. Even
there's another right-wing talking point: personal responsibility. To the extent that personal responsibility is a thing, I do broadly believe in people being accountable for themselves. However, to throw personal responsibility out at every issue is to try and cover up the systemic issues. Like, hey, man, you know, maybe you should stop blaming systemic racism for why you struggle in a systemically racist society, and maybe just take some responsibility for yourself, as if these things are mutually exclusive. Maybe you can be personally responsible, but also acknowledge the reality that there is systemic oppression. And hell, I would even argue that it's a responsible position to oppose that oppression. Because frankly, how the fuck are you supposed to succeed if it's there? You just gotta count on luck. It's responsible to try and do something about it. If you're not doing anything about it, that is irresponsible. But again, Candace Owens is not even prepared to have that conversation. She doesn't do conversation. She just spews right-wing talking points. I think you're going to hear me say that a lot, especially about Candace Owens.
No, we do it at a way higher rate to ourselves, right? We celebrate our drug dealers. We're the only community, right, that would ever create hashtags to free people from prison because they committed crimes, like free Meek Mill, free this rapper, free this rapper. How hard is it to not spend multiple times in prison?
One could argue that if you come from a community with no real opportunities to speak of, yeah, that is pretty fucking hard, because you don't got anything to go off of. So you do what's available. It's a gang, it's a drug trade. That's how you can make some money. You can make a lot of money too. You do what you can. Personally, I wouldn't. I don't agree with drug dealers and whatnot, and gangs and all that bullshit. But, like, your perspective is so skewed, Candace. And it's crazy coming from a woman who once fucking, like, asked for help from the NAACP to deal with a racial lawsuit. Do you understand that? This is ridiculous. You understand that your blackness can actually be a detriment to you in society, but you can't acknowledge the reality of black struggles? It's absurd. It's absurd. What the fuck, you stupid fucking bitch.
How difficult is that? Is that too hard for us? Is that way too high of a mountain for us to scale, to do the right thing, to be upstanding citizens? That is the call to action that I have for Black America with Blexit. Like, why do we keep fulfilling this narrative? What do you think the perception of us, by the way, is on the outside? You ever look at the comments? You ever go into like an anonymous blog and see what people say? Oh, just black people being black people. I see those racist comments. Oh, just black people got to riot. Black people got to be black people. You know how they are. Oh, just black people being ignorant. That is the perception. When people get to be anonymous and talk about us, that's what they think about us.
Oh yeah, your friends are going to think that about us, Candace, but that's because your friends are the racists. If you look at the broader perception of black people right now during these protests by America, largely favorable for us. And as a matter of fact, we're getting action in our favor. Minneapolis is defunding its police department, Candace. So, broadly speaking, no. Like, there's Not everybody is racist, Candace. Your homies are, though. So wherever you get your information from, yeah, they're going to be saying racist shit about us, just like you are. But that's why you fuck with the racists. I don't. So since I don't fuck with any racists, I don't know nobody that's saying racist things about us right now. Be they white, black, Spanish, what have you. Not too much racism going on over here. But you, yeah, I'm sure you're seeing that. I believe you. I'm pretty sure you actually do grasp why, but I'll be sure to say you don't seem to grasp why.
Right? They think that we are the kind of people that will forever uphold criminals as the martyrs of our society, that we will never take account for the things that we do wrong, right? That we don't have it within us to educate ourselves to get ahead. And that for those of us that actually do it, well, we get called coons, right? You got Condoleezza Rice, she's a coon. Larry Elder, he's a coon. Dr. Ben Carson, brain surgeon, first ever to perform the surgery of splitting twins that are connected by the head. He's a coon, right? What a loser he is.
Yeah, they all coons. Condoleezza, I didn't know that middle guy. But if he agrees with you, then and is black, then he probably is. Ben Carson is an interesting case, man. I read his book, Gifted Hands, when I was younger. This guy was an idol to me. I looked up to him. I did. Ben Carson. I thought, man, this black man is a genius. He managed to pull off something like this. That's incredible, man. And then I saw this motherfucker get to speaking, and I'm like, oh my God. It really tore my heart. If you're watching this, this is like a moment of honesty for me. It really pulled at the heartstrings because he ran as a Republican in the 2016 election, as some of you may know. And he was saying all the typical crazy, stupid-ass Republican things. And it's like, dude, how can somebody so gifted be so fucking stupid? It hurt to see, man. I had to tear myself away from that because I really wanted to believe Ben Carson used to be one of my heroes. Not no more. Ben Carson is now ain't shit to me. He's garbage to me, just like you are, Candace.
What a stupid guy he is. Kanye West says he's not going to be told to do it because of the color of his skin. He's a coon. He's lost. He's in the sunken place. The sunken place. That's where we all are, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Thanks for reminding me. First off, it seemed like a rumor that Kanye has been faking it this whole time. Like the MAGA thing, he's been faking it. That'd be interesting. I'd still say there's broadly a lot of criticisms for him, even if that were true, because he did do a lot of noticeable harm in the interim. It says that he was trying to help with prison reform, get some innocent people out of prison. That's the rumor. I don't know how true it is. Even if it was true, he still did considerable harm. So perhaps he shouldn't have undertaken that undercover mission. But thanks for reminding me about the sunken place, Candace. So I'm lucid right now. Like I am of my right mind right now. If ever I come out and I start to broadly agree with someone like Candace Owens, send help. That means I'm actually in the second place. So please do me a favor. If you see me on the street, hit me with like a flashing camera or something like that, or like a flashing light, so I could kill her and then myself.
Because we demand more and we will get more out of this society because we're going to get ahead, right? That's what's going to happen. We're going to get ahead. Black conservatives get ahead because we don't subscribe to this narrative. Because you're not going to catch me outside trying to grab a TV pretending that it's because a martyr named George Floyd got killed.
Black conservatives get ahead because you're useful idiots. Because you're willing to parrot the racist right-wing talking points that the racists need to get out there without it being them saying it. And so they're willing to pay you a lot of money. Like, come on, man. I could do what you do, Candace. But I have a soul. I have morals. I have character. You're not some fucking genius. You're actually pretty fucking stupid. But because you're willing to throw your morals away for money, you're getting a lot of money. Simple as that. Also, the rest of the people that you listed on that list, the Kanye's, the Ben Carsons of the world, Ben Carson is objectively a genius surgeon, and Kanye West is objectively a genius musician. Even if I happen to hate those people, they're talented. Candace, you have no talents. You're not even good at what you do. You're just paid to do it.
Okay? I'm a big believer that no matter what color you are, you do stupid things, you win stupid prizes, okay? We have to do better. We have to teach our kids better, or we're not going to get ahead, right? Anyways, this is just a rant because I have been feeling super, super, super annoyed at these depictions in society. I have no apologies here to make. George Floyd is not my martyr. He can be yours. That's all I have to say to Black America.
I happen to know that you're unapologetic, Candace, and guess what? I ain't got no apologies for you either. When I call you a stupid fucking bitch, when I call you an Uncle Tom coon-ass, Auntie Ruckus-ass nigga, I mean that shit. Consider the bridge burned. As for you in general, I mean, obviously we take a look at this video, and it's all a load of horse shit, right? Just a bunch of nonsense, bullshit, right-wing talking points. But I want to talk about you, Candace. I wonder, how do you sleep at night? Like, I wonder, do you know all of the harm that you've done to your own people? Are you aware of it? Like, does it ever cross your mind? Or, like, if you don't know, I guess, then, ignorance is bliss, right? But I feel like you do. I feel like you're just smart enough to understand. How do you sleep? Does the money give you comfort? Is it just that you're being paid so well that you just buy yourself whatever temporarily eases the pain? And so, that's how you get by? Because if so, well, I have a message for you, Candace. There is a special place in hell for people like you. You have knowingly done horrible, horrible things to your own people. You have knowingly caused untold amounts of harm. And there's a lot of people who are dead now, whose lives are miserable, impoverished, suffering in a jail cell because of the ideals that you do a lot of work to uphold. You're not the originator of those ideas. You're not the sole purveyor of them, but you do a lot of work to uphold those ideals. I don't know if you're a believer, but I happen to be someone who does believe in God, and I believe there's a heaven, I believe there's a hell. And I hope, because as of right now, at the time that I'm making this video, I'm a nobody, and you're big time. I get that. But I hope that one day when I am big time, and you're looking back, and you're trying to look through my old videos to see if you can find some dirt on me from back when I wasn't all that big, I hope you come across this video. And I hope you hear this message. And I hope that a little chill goes up your spine as you realize that what I'm saying is true. That is to say, and I hope you do believe as I do. And what I'm saying is true. That this shit is not going to last forever, Candace. And you can't take the money with you. One day, it's going to be your time. Your time on this earth will be over. And you will be judged. Jesse Dollamore told you to repent. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure that repenting will even save you. I'm not sure about that. God is a forgiving God, but there's some things that even He does not forgive. It might already be too late for you, Candace. How does that feel? If I ever get to see you in person, I'll ask you that. But if you're looking at this to try and get some dirt on me now, I want you to think about that. How does it feel to know that you may have already condemned yourself to an eternity in hell? Because if I were you, well, I'd be scared. I'd be worried. I'd say, you know what, I can't do this no more. I can't. I gotta try. I gotta do something to maybe save my soul. Because I, I don't want to suffer after I leave this earth. But what you've done, I don't know, man. It seems unforgivable to me. If I were you, I would pray. I would ask for repentance. And I would change my ways and hope that I see some mercy. As for everybody else, I want to thank you for watching this video. My content will be more like this, a little reactionary, as it were, than it would be like my older video, my first one. That was like an hour long, just going through all of 2020. I'm going to do more reactionary stuff most of the time. Plenty of things to react to, plenty of right-wing grifters like Candace to go after. That's where more of my content will be. I would like, obviously, for this channel to grow in the ideal future. This channel will become full-time. I'll be able to do it for a living. I can't do it now, obviously. I average like 10 views per video. Like, if I can start to get that at a higher number, I'll give you more content. I'll go as often as daily. I'd love to do live streams, have a little fun here and there, do gaming content and things like that. I would like to monetize it, of course. So I do have a lot of plans for this channel. But broadly speaking, a lot of it is going to be like this, responding to bullshit conservative arguments. And I appreciate those of you who have been here already, the few views that I've gotten. I hope that you guys stick around for the ride. And I really like, I'm hoping things take off. For now, I'll be trying to do, about a video per week. As it gains more traction and I can dedicate more time to it, maybe because I'm an essential worker, I'll be doing a video on that stuff in the future. As it gains more traction and I can dedicate more time to it, there'll be more content. But it's all dependent on that kind of thing. Hello again from future me here. Originally, I had ended this video off with the classic YouTuber calls to action, like, share, subscribe, and all that. I'd still appreciate if you did, but in the intervening time while I've been editing this video, it's taken me a while. I'm not exactly a professional editor. We've had two significant developments. One is Dave Chappelle's new Netflix special 846, which we'll get to, and the other is the murder by a police officer of one Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta. I'll probably do a full video on that situation at a future time. But for right now, we're protesting against police brutality and police violence, especially against Black people. And the police can't restrain themselves long enough not to shoot a Black man who is running away in the back. This is what we're protesting against. This is what we're talking about. The police are constantly proving a point since then. The only
so far, we've got a little bit of good news is that Rayshard Brooks' murder was ruled a homicide, but that story is still developing. So hopefully his murderer will be brought to justice, and we might have some semblance of justice in this country. Um, but for now, um, I would like to leave you all with some a clip from Dave Chappelle's special. I have the full thing listed below, link below in the description. Um, Dave Chappelle is one of the OGs. He's you know he's been talking about race relations and all that in his way as a comedian, but he's been talking about this shit for decades. And so he has some choice words for Candace Owens. I think I'll just like to leave the video off with those. So again, thank you for watching, and be safe. Take care of each other, and have a good one.
Candace Owens, that rotten bitch. She's the worst. I can't think of a worse way to make money. She's the most articulate idiot I've ever seen in my fucking life. She's so articulate, she can tell you how fucking stupid she is precisely. And she told George Floyd's rap record on the internet, oh, he was this, he did that, and he's a drug addict, and he's not a hero, and why does the black community make him a hero? Why do you choose him as a hero? We didn't choose him, you did. They killed him, and that wasn't right, so he's the guy.